36, and the average you want to be at 40. And I don't think nobody in the conference was even at 40. And that shows how far out that both of these teams are, as far as those are championship stats. And anytime I've been a part of a championship, I had those stats. Those stats was popped up. I even was on a team that was giving up only 12 points a game. And that's a big stat. You know what I mean? Because one thing about it is, sometimes your defense or your offense is your defense, being able to stay on the field. And that's when you start looking at the third down conversion. But the other part, what I didn't really like was how many yards they give up per play. That was not good. You want to be more under 3%. Why? I mean, because if you get 3 yards on first, second, and third down, you don't have no first down. You got to kick it. So right now you go 4-4-4. You actually moving the ball, but both of them are right there. It seems like both defenses are stingy. When it comes to that, they bend, but they don't break. Man, this is an evenly matched football game. And I think, we're going to get into it with Coach Campbell about the personnel and the coaching and kind of break it down like that way. And then, we'll come up with our predictions and, we'll be ready to go to Atlanta into Mercedes-Benz Arena.
All right, we can bring up this is South Carolina players, their key players and stuff like that. And then if Zoe wants to come on the next slide when we do the Jackson State key players and mention probably some players we weren't able to highlight. Now, these players that I highlighted here were basically the all-conference players, the players that were recognized for the work that they did. And so first one we want to talk about is Eric Phoenix, who was the MEAC Offensive Player of the Year. He passed for over 3,000 yards, ran for over 800, and a combination of running and throwing 32 touchdowns. Coach, what do you think about those stats?
Oh, extremely good stats. The thing that jumps out at me is that he rushed 800 times. So that now he's a double threat. He's a guy that he can put the team on his back. So, he can extend plays as well as he can make things happen. So he's going to be really, really dangerous. South Carolina State is going to really, really have to lean on him, I think. I think that Jackson State's defense is going to have to – what they got to do is they rushers do not rush behind him. They defense in. When they rush, they got to stay in front of him. They try to keep him in the pocket. When you rush behind him, he'll get up underneath you and cause problems. So that's the thing. And the defensive front has got to get a good push up the middle to keep pressure on him. So I like to see Jackson State bring some blitzes, bring some zone blitzes, and see that if he can read them, or he'll take the ball and duck it and try to run and get first downs. They definitely going to have to, he's going to be the key to me for South Carolina State's offense.
All right, next guy is Pat. Hey, Campbell, can you read the screen or?
Yeah. Let's kind of and guys, what we're trying to do. I know you've heard we got everybody breaking down, but what we're going to do in this show, we're really going to actually talk about the players, because I think what has not happened that I've watched is to talk about individual matchups and individual players. So you're talking about a South Carolina State team, 12 all MEAC selections. You're talking about a Jackson State team, 11 all SWAC selections. So one of the things that we're looking at, so Rocky has broke down right here. One of the things that's most interesting, you're talking about Eric Phoenix, who actually played 2 years, and let's not forget that 2 years at Benedict for Coach Barrett, who's also the MEAC Coach of the Year. So now you're talking about Caden High, Brown, and Tony. Now you're talking about three guys that are all first team MEAC. So now you're looking at that, but here's the thing. But you got Robert McDaniel and Wiggins and Asias Guthrie. Those guys are going to be going heads up with these guys. So when you're looking at that, Coach, what do you have to do at South Carolina State? You've got these all-conference players, but Jack State brings two off-conference players at the defensive backs. What do you have to do to win that matchup?
Well, anytime, again, it starts in the trenches. In the deep on the defense, how much pressure they can put with just four guys, or do they got to bring an extra guy or two extra ones? So a lot of it depends on that front. And like I said, watching Phoenix versus North Carolina Central, I thought when Central put pressure on him, he had problems keeping his eyes down the field. I think in the secondary, High, we talked about this kind of last week. The wide receiver, Caden High, now he's a burner. He's a burner, but he's a little guy. And Jackson State got big defensive backs, that can cover well, that can put a hand on him and slow him up. You know what I mean? So in that area, I don't look for High to have a big game unless they put him on jet sweeps and, put him on a couple reverses. But they're going to have to tackle him, because if you get away, man, you might as well strike up the band.
Now, Coach, one of the things that you talked about, and this is where I think is the key. So you got South Carolina State with 4 all-conference offensive linemen. But they're going to be going against Joshua Nobles and True Thompson. Now, both of these guys have double-digit tackle for losses. Nobles has 10 sacks. So you're talking about, and with Williams also as a defensive tackle. So what you're talking about is where it's going to be won. So you're talking about an experienced offensive line with South Carolina State going against this defensive line against Jackson State. That, to me, to your point, Coach, and what I've seen, is that's where the game is going to be won. Because I'll tell you this too, and this is, I think, a stat. South Carolina State has allowed 20 sacks in 11 games. So we're talking about a little bit, basically one a game, 1.5 a game.
Two a game.
Two a game.
Yeah.
Hey,
so they're keeping the guy clean. They're keeping the guy clean.
Hey, I want to welcome Zoe on the stream, man. Zoe, I may be mistaken, but this is your first time on with us. You've been on off script a number of times, but this is your first time on with us, and I want to personally thank you. I enjoy your content over at 1400 Club and all that you do for the collective over there at Jackson State. So, man, I appreciate you coming on and having this discussion with us and giving us that Jackson State perspective. So you said some interesting things on Scotty's podcast. But I just wanted to ask you this question. How are you feeling about the quarterback situation? And then we'll get into the preview of the game.
Well, first, thanks for having me. And before I say the thing, I was actually checking you guys out. Like I said, I watch you guys every time you guys come on. And it was a treat for me, being a HBCU historian, to see Bill Hayes come on and say the things he said. Man, I actually wish I had played for the guy. Gave great context, man. Sound like, somebody's granddad. I'm not trying to, date myself or date him, but it was a treat to hear him on here, man. Seriously. And I know his players, to revel him. And also, before I get into that, I wanted to say too, I think all you guys were right when you talk about new coaches in this day and age. I think when you talk about Eddie Robinson and those guys, to answer your guys' question, because I wanted to say this, it was a multitude of things. Eddie Robinson didn't want to go anyplace else. W.C. Gordon didn't want to go anyplace else. And it was the way of the world at that time. The ways of the world have changed now. Eddie Robinson had a chance to go coach at the Rams. He turned that down. W.C. Gordon had a chance to leave Jackson State. He turned that down. They wanted to be where they were, and they were teachers. And they both had great staffs. Their tree extended out wide. So I just wanted to say that to you guys. But to answer your question, Rocky, about the quarterbacks, listen, Jacobian is fine. And I want to say this because I know people want to say the things that they want to say about Southern, but I want to give Southern their due. Unlike a lot of other people, say they bagged in, but to me, just watching football, they are a year ahead of what they thought they would be. I know it's Terrence Gray's first year. He did a great job in his first season. I know you may say, oh, well, basically it's the entire staff from the previous year, but he made some changes and still he's the head man making his own decisions, doing it his way in his first year. And so we have to give credence to that. Be it as it may, because guess what? TC Taylor made a championship game in his first year, no matter what that looks like. It was a different scenario, but he still made it. And the reason why I thought Southern would actually, cause any type of issue was because of how they played every game this season. Every game for Southern this year was a dogfight. They played 4 overtime games, and so that's a team that doesn't quit. That's playing for their coach. But again, even going into this game, I felt like we were just a bad matchup for them, and that's what showed on Saturday, right? We were just a bad matchup for that particular team. But look, shout out to Campbell Givens, man. He left it all on the field. Dude got hurt, and he played on guts. And so, but to answer your question, Jacoby is fine. I don't necessarily say that he played bad. I want to give Southern the credit. Their defense made him look that way. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to give them their kudos because that first half was what it was. But like Coach says every week, the game's 60 minutes. You win the first half. You don't get tokens just because you won the first half. You get that ring because you win the second half, but you win the totality of the game.
Oh, well, that's cool. That's cool. So as we go through these matchups, I want to ask you this here. This is another question going over both teams. Why do you think Truce Thompson and his compadre, I forget his name down in the trenches,
Jeremiah Williams.
Why weren't they recognized as all SWAC players?
Man, look, if I can answer that, man, I can give you a lot of numbers. That's just the way it goes in the SWAC, man. It's always been that way. A lot of times, and a lot of conferences tend to do this as well. I want to point this out. A lot of times when you talk about postseason awards and postseason teams, we tend to want to elevate seniors to help them out on the HBCU level with regards to maybe this one thing could help them with draft positioning and, draft stocks are just kudos in that regard because that True Thompson's on the way out, but Jeremiah's coming back as well. So a lot of times that's happening, you know what I'm saying? And it's really crazy when you talk about what True did. I mean, for a D tackle, you know what I'm saying, to have as many tackle for losses he's had and to not get it, and this is not to say the guys who got it are unworthy, but man, numbers are numbers. Production is production. And you got these kind of numbers on, to me, well, not to me, the numbers say it. Alabama State statistically had the best defense in conference, but in conference play, Jackson State had the best defense in the conference.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I can't argue that. I was just
wondering. Let me ask Joe something. About Southern, and Terrence Graves did a great job, and everything that you said is true. If you had to rank Southern and you ranked all the SWAC teams, where would you rank them at?
That's a damn good question. Well, right now I would say fourth.
Okay.
Let me change that. I would say tied for third.
With Florida A&M?
I would say tied with Alabama State. I wrestle with putting Alabama State second, but FAMU beat them.
And we beat Southern. Don't get it twisted. Okay, so
FAMU beat Southern. So I would put Southern and Alabama State tied for third.
But believe me, the reason why I can't. They're not going to still score on Alabama State probably at all.
Well, you know what? And that's why I say tied because, and I'll say this, they probably won't score against Alabama State, but Alabama State could turn the ball over, and Southern has better special teams. So that's why I say tied because whoever win that game could take sole possession of third.
So okay, I simply asked you this.
Okay.
So.
And I was just saying that because, going into the game and you playing a championship game, and you want to even match up, I just, the numbers wasn't even in no type of way. I know you said that, the matchup was bad, but, when you're a champion, you're a champion. You know what I'm saying? And you bring your A game, I bring my A game, and then we get it on.
No doubt. But here's the thing. Style makes fights because sometimes even though you may have, for example, you can have a team and Southern possibly could look better, right? Even though a team could have a better record and may look better during the season, style make fights. That same team could be a bad matchup against the best team on the other side. So you know what I'm saying? That's just that's the main reason why sometimes you can have a team with a lesser record that's, that can match up evenly well with a team that's really, really thriving and winning.
Yeah. See, but that's why you can't compare boxing to playing football. You comparing apples to oranges. You know what I mean? If my game is a run game and I can run that ball and you can't stop the run, then I'll see. And if I can throw it and you can't stop the pass, I can see where you can compare. But when you come and play football that day, if you get to that championship game, you got to bring your A game. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the thing. Now, normally, Coach, I would agree with you, but there's an anomaly in football. It's called turnovers. That's what gets you, turnovers. And we can attest to it, right? Look at
But see, that's why I was telling you, you don't have no turnovers. You don't have no turnovers in boxing. Damn it, you let your jaw up, and he hits you. Yeah, you're right. Turnover.
They don't have knockout. They have knockouts in boxing. They don't have turnovers.
You got a 10 count. See, in football, you can turn the ball over and recover. You know what I mean? That don't mean they got to score. You ain't got no 10 count. Yeah. No, I like what you say. I believe Southern would be a notch behind Alabama State or Florida A&M. No matter. But Jackson State to me, and I know you attested, they just been that much better than everybody. Out the block, and I just kind of course, it showed on this past.
So I gotta rib you a little bit, Zoe, because I watched a lot of you guys' content last year, but I appreciate you saying about Terrence Graves. He's a year ahead of schedule. Yeah. Based on everything you said about Jackson State last year, is Jackson State a year behind schedule?
No, not at all. I fully felt that we would be better than what we were, but I could also say we went 7-4. We just as easily could have been 9-2. And that's with the turnover that we had. TC Taylor, by all estimations, had an amazing season last year. You go to the Alabama State game, it was almost like the Southern game. We had 5 turnovers in that game, and yet still lost on the last drive heading in for the score to win that game. Guy caught a ball was called out of bounds, still had a chance to win that game. And then you go to Alcorn. And fun fact for you all, if Jackson State wins that game against Alcorn, we actually go to the playoffs. The representatives were actually in Jackson. So if we don't lose to either Alabama State, or Alcorn down the stretch of the season, we go to the playoffs to actually go play Nicholls State. Yeah, so, by all accounts, we were in that first year to go 7-4 and look the way that we did with the turnover that we had, because it wasn't just the roster; it was everything. Yeah. And we look good to me.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I felt TC Taylor grew as a head coach as well as a coordinator, from being at North Carolina Central under Jerry Mack, and then now moving to Jackson State, and he really had to swallow his pride a little at JS State. Deion them came over and took over Jackson State, and I know how I feel about my alma mater. And being there, and he was the tight end coach, and then he went to the coordinator. Then they got coordinator back from him. I mean, he's been through a lot, and he grew up. He stayed evidently. He kept his mouth closed, head down, learn what he could learn. And then, like you say, last year, he might have tried to toss the ball around. And I thought this year he made a commitment not to just throw the ball to be throwing it, but throwing the ball off of the run. And I seen that growth, and I thought, yeah, they ready to go.
Well, one other point that I want to highlight too, to echo what you stated, Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't state this. You go into everything that happened into last season. You segue to the end of the year. We lose to Alabama State. We lose to Alcorn. We finish the year 7-4. We turn around and we have the best recruiting class in all of HBCU, number 2 ranked class in the country. We had 7 early enrollees, and you segue that into the spring. We lose a good number of coaches that, elevated up to other FBS programs, right? So then you turn around and you segue off of going 7-4, and now it's time to hire some other coaches. Jackson State has the youngest coaching staff in the country, the youngest. Mm-hmm. And then you look at who we elevated Coach Quinn, the defensive coordinator. This is his first year being a coordinator. He did an amazing job. Be remiss if we didn't say that. Then you look at the other coaches who we brought in who didn't have the experience, and they're young. We're talking about late 20s, early 30s, 30, 31-year-old coaches filling in their first year. And remember at the beginning of the season, and that's what guys got to understand. It's a long season. So you go into the beginning of the season, and that's why I always say, remember the narrative. We started out fast, get these great leads, and we don't make halftime adjustments. But hey, it's a long season. You keep your head down and you keep working. Every game matters. That narrative changed by the time we get to FAMU. We played FAMU, and from that moment, do you guys know that since the FAMU game, we've only given up 13 points in the second half for the rest of the year? So talk about making halftime adjustments. And this is with a young staff who, by all accounts, you know what I'm saying, coming back next season. You know, and this is a young team, by the way. And I can tell you right now, as it stands going into this Celebration Bowl, you look at what we've done from a recruit standpoint. Signing day was last week. You look at the guys that we signed. And we're probably going to have about 8 early enrollees in next month as well. And so, again, it just, look, I made the comment, and I'll pass it over to you, Rocky. I made the comment when TC Taylor got hired. We interviewed him, and I told everyone, I know TC personally, and just knowing the aesthetic and what it looked like, and growing up a Jack State Tiger fan and being immersed in HBCU ball. And I said, listen, trust me when I tell you, because I'm around it. Jackson State University under TC Taylor's leadership is going to look like a W.C. Gordon-led team. When I say that, everybody's like, I said, no, I'm not saying that TC Taylor is going to win in a manner like W.C. Gordon. I don't think any coach can. It's going to be hard to win 8 titles in 11 years. But what I'm saying is the way it looked, that blue helmet you see behind me with that red face mask, that Jackson State University, that behemoth that was created in the 80s, that wore them red shoes, them red Nikes. Steve, you know what I'm talking about, with them short shimmy shirts. What it looked like under W.C. Gordon, that's what it's going to look like under T.C. Taylor. Because guess what? T.C. Taylor, whether people don't realize it, it got the W.C. Gordon. He's under that tree. Got recruited under Big Daddy, who was W.C.'s defensive coordinator. Played under Judge, who was W.C. Gordon's running back coach and equipment guy. I mean, so T.C. is going to have recruit small town Mississippi kids. It's going to have that feel to it. And guess what? Already a SWAC champion in second year. Coach Gordon never did that. And TC Taylor goes out here and do what I think he's going to do Saturday. Be the first coach to do it in this short time span. And it's going to do wonders for recruiting. Now you segue then to year 3. You maintain that staff. You keep recruiting the way you're doing, because we're going to have a top 3 class in the country. This is not me being a fan. This is just facts. Now you segue into year 3. Look what that looked like. So I don't sound too crazy now when I said what I said 2 years ago.
So let me ask you this, and you can how much do you give this ascension into the SWAC, being a SWAC champion? How much credit do you give TC the coach versus TC the coordinator in play call?
I give TC everything. I give it everything, man. To know, so I'm not trying to speak as a fan. I'm being on the inside, knowing what that looked like. And look, you know, when you talk about, just picture this, you're a head coach, and coach, you can vouch for this. I don't think people really gravitate and understand when you talk about losing 80% of your roster. You just got hired as a coach for the first time in your life. You're headed back to Jackson after losing the bowl game, and you lost 80% of your roster. And guess what you got to do? You got to go recruit. You got to go recruit. And I don't think if people go back and look what we signed right then and there. Not only do you got to recruit, you got to assemble the staff. Not only that, you lost your training staff. You lost the equipment guy. I mean, you lost so many people in the building, not just the coaching staff. You're a first-time head coach, and you're having to navigate those waters. Man, to come back, piece that roster together the way that he did, get a damn good staff the way that he did, and then turn around and go 7-4, he's to be commended for that. And he had the chance to be 9-2, but it is what it is. And then you segue that in year 2 and win a title. Nah, man, the OC and the head coach, they cannot be separated. Both did an amazing job. And I want to caution people too. What you are on the first game, you shouldn't look like on your last game. People need to understand that. It's a long season. It's what you do as the season wanes and go on. That's why I give Terrence Graves credit. Because Southern, they didn't look great early in the year. And they might look good all the year long. But again, they piece wins together. You got to give them credit for that. And he's in his first year. TC Taylor did the same damn thing. So I give him kudos for both.
Hey, Coach, I want to ask Coach this. Can you not separate the coach as a play caller and OC from the head coach?
Well, you know, when you're doing good, you know, you're doing good. You know what I'm saying? Because it is separate. You know, really at the end of the day, you know, when you're the head coach, you're looking at the general program, not necessarily just one half. And then when you're coordinating, of course, you're doing an offensive coordinator job. And if you're doing well, then and just like Zoe said, I mean, you know, you got to give him A's on both sides. 37 points a game. You got the best defense. You got the best offense. You got the you know, and your numbers are extremely high.
And Coach, let me, and I gotta give that context, right? So you go into the second game of the season, you lose both your starting wide receivers. Third game of the season, you lose your third starting wide out. Fourth game of the season, you lose the next man up to him. You're down 5. The top 5 receivers, you're down. You lose your starting tight end. Literally, the first practice lead up to the first week of the first game, and then you still are able. And you lose 2 running backs. You lose your previous starter, and you're still able to put up almost 40 points a game. That's recruiting, and again, that's amazing work.
So ain't no question, man. I don't take nothing from TC Taylor. I think when you kill a fly with a jackhammer. I believe in that, and I think he done. So you've been in the SWAC. You look at all the teams. You look at all the head coaches. Where would these coaches you think be ranked in the glory days?
The one we got now?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I was saying all that before you even answered.
Okay. I don't want to say that because I don't want to come off as disrespectful.
Right.
So let me give a different perspective. So look, I grew up with Houston Mark, lived right down the street from him. Right, he was the O-line OC coach at the point at that time. Coach Carson lived in the next subdivision right by me. Known him my whole life. Then you got Coach Jones. All these guys on the same staff were on Coach Gordon's staff, by the way. They all end up leaving him and winning. This speaks to coaching tree under Coach Gordon. And they were all there and won championship. Coach Cardell Jones ended up going to Alcorn, Coach Steve McNair. And Coach Markham ended up going to Alabama State to Coach Eddie Robinson and Ricky Jones, who's from Jackson, and they win a championship, and they had a phenomenal offense. And coincidentally, all those guys that Coach Markham was recruiting for Jackson State ended up taking with him to Alabama State to win that title in 91. They put in 80, 90 points on people. And so the coaching staff in that time was phenomenal. You're talking about Doug Porter, who left Grambling under Coach Robinson, ended up going to Fort Valley State. The coaching was phenomenal at that time in the 80s and the early 90s. So, man, to talk about what we have now, and this is not to minimize what they have because it's a different set of problems, different type of athlete that they're recruiting. But I want to give Eddie Robb his due too. You know, for him to not have the experience, like the traditional experience, coaching and working his way up, for him to come in, as I would like to say, come in cold at Alabama State, and to do what he's done, outshining the previous 2 coaches that was there. You know what I'm saying? To do what he's done needs to be commended. I just think what we have in the SWAC is just entirely too much turnover and no patience. I like to say in this climate of football today, there would be no Eddie Robinson. It's impossible. There would be no Eddie Robinson in today's climate.
Yeah. Well, I had an opportunity to play against all those games you named, as well as coached as a young coach against all those. So I'm very familiar with who you was talking about and what you were saying. Go ahead, Coach Campbell.
Well, Zoe, I tell you what, let's get to the game. So one of the things that I wanted to bring, and I really was curious about it, your offensive line versus South Carolina's defensive line, their front 7. They're bringing 5 guys all conference. Their defensive ends total almost 20 sacks, 27 tackles for losses. Tell me what, because, and again, I hate to bring back history, but one of the things, the reason why Jackson State lost that first Celebration Bowl, South Carolina, because South Carolina State's defensive line dominated. What does Jackson State's offensive line, and kind of talk about some of the players on that offensive line and what they've got to do to contain those 2 defensive ends that are all conference for South Carolina State?
Well, I'm gonna say this, and I promise I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you can put an asterisk by saying the number of guys they have all conference. There's only 6 teams, and it's only 2 teams with winning records in the conference. You know, and this is not to slight them because those two DNs they have are really, really good. So this is not to slight them, but when you know the numbers could kind of be skewed because there's only 2 winning teams in the conference. But I feel like
you saying in the MEAC.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's only 2 winning teams in the conference. So, and it's not to skew them, but those 2 ends are legit. You know, you watch them, and they're the main thing that stand out to you. But you know, the one great thing that you do at defensive ends, and I don't really feel like it's a issue for us because most defensive ends, they really get their praise from rushing the passer. We're a running team though, and you know how you negate great pass rushers? Run at them.
Run at them.
Exactly. And that's what we're gonna do. But I feel like what we can do inside is going to give credence. And here's the thing: I think it's the hammer and nail theory when we play them. You know, they want to score quick. They don't want to have a grounded out, dirty type of game. But the beautiful thing about Jackson State is we have options of how we want to approach this. You know, whether it's, you know what I'm saying, you know, we don't have to score 40 to win. You know, but if we need to, we're capable of doing it. If it's a slow down, dirty game and we just need to play field position and kick field goals to win the game, we can do that too. The main thing for us against this defense, I believe, again, is running at those defensive ends, but I really feel like we have the advantage inside. I feel like center to guard, we have the advantage in the trenches over them. I really, really do. But again, I have the ultimate respect for their D ends. Both of them jump out at you.
You know, one of the things about this game that concerns me, as I will be rooting for Jackson State as I do on most Saturdays, right? But my concern is, can Jackson State make Eric Phoenix look pedestrian? If Jackson State can make Eric Phoenix just look pedestrian, I'm not saying bad, but make him not look like Vic or even what's my guy that played against Jackson State in the against Shador, Davius Richards. If you could keep him from looking like that, I think Jackson State has a great chance to win the game. Do you have any insight on how Jackson State can go about making Eric Phoenix look just normal and not otherworldly?
I mean, just do what we do. Just do what we do. I mean, we're great against the run. We contain very well, and you know, we're a fast defense. And I'm gonna be honest, no matter who we play, you won't get anything. You won't get anything up the middle. I mean, True and Jeremiah have been consistent. It's death taxes and them stopping the run up the middle. You're not getting up the A gap. So same thing applies. Center the guards, you're not getting nothing. So everything's going to be outside. Everything's going to have to be outside. That's every team we play. Even Alabama State, the success they had running, you know what I'm saying? We had bad alignment on one play and they got that one long touchdown. But even that was outside. Nothing is coming up inside. And so to answer your question, I mean, just do what we do. The main thing in this game that we're going to definitely have to do is tackle well. As two things that's tried and true for Jack State to win this game. If we tackle well and we don't turn the ball over, I don't see it being an issue for us to come out with a victory. But tackling is going to be key because I really feel like now look, have all the respect for Eric Phoenix. I think he's a dog. But I think this will be the type of game where he alone, he's going to have to really throw for a boatload of yards, and only he alone is going to have to run and again doing what he's going to have to do all game long against the defense. And again, you get hit enough, you get touched enough, you know what I'm saying, second guess some of those runs, it's going to be what it's going to be. But at the end of the day, look, we could take him running the ball. Look, if he throw 500 yards, you take your hat off, meet him at midfield and shake his hand and say, good job, son. Outside of that, nah, it ain't happening.
Here's what South Carolina State got to do to beat Jackson State. They got to control pressure. They got to be good on first down, and they got to hit the big one. And they have people that can do that. Phoenix can hit the big one. Cadence High can get deep. They got the other wideouts that can catch the ball as well. I think what you're saying, they're gonna have to hit off the edges. They not gonna be up in the A gap. They're gonna have to come in the B and C gap, which they will. You know, you can't say enough about Chennis Berry, who's a former O-line coach and one of the very good O-line coach who also know the passing game as well. You know, so they'll do a lot of play action as well and try to get on the edge. I think that's where when Jackson State does put pressure, and I've seen it a lot, Zoe, last game, that a lot of times those guys are shooting up the same gap. And I know they ain't being coached that way. You know, sometimes, you know, players make mistakes. They got to be on cue to stay in their gaps and keep gap integrity. Because if they lose Phoenix on the edge, it could really be damaging as far as them keeping the ball and keeping Jackson State backed up. Of course, the big thing is nobody is talking about is special teams. And that's where I think you can control possession. You know what I mean? The question is can Morgan handle it? Can he take the team, 65, 70 yards and score? Because South Carolina State is going to see if he can throw the football. You know what I mean? They're going to try to take away, your big fish, and that's the tailback. So that's kind of the way I kind of see it.
Well,
so let me before you start, let me ask you a question because I'm going to set up because I think this. Here's the last 5 games. South Carolina State, it scored 69 against Delaware, 24 against Central. I think we all agree Central's a top 5 HBCU team. 38 against Howard, 54 against Morgan, and 53 against Norfolk. So clearly offense. What does Jackson State have to do, or do you believe can they win in a shootout? Because I think South Carolina State has quick strike capability. I think what Jackson State has is consistent ability to score. So what kind of game does Jackson State have to do? Because as you can see, these guys are coming in with a lot of confidence that they put in 60, 50, and like I said, Morgan State has a good defense. Central has a good defense. So what do you think Jackson State has to do for that score not to get up and not to get in that battle where your quarterback now has to go shot for shot?
Well, I don't look at it that way. When you say all those points on all those teams, all I hear is horrendous defense. That's all I hear. And look at where they're ranked. They're horrible. So I don't foresee them putting that many points on us. Because again, it's what we give up per game. I really don't see that. But
wait, hold on now, Zoe. Who is Jack? Now, wait a minute now. Jack, listen, the swag is down. So we go team for team now that Jack State has played. Those teams are just as bad.
But here's the
Alabama State's defense.
Here's the difference.
Southern and FAMU, come on now.
Hey, look, I'm glad you guys are saying it and not
don't
me.
do that now.
But here's the difference. Here's the difference. Go look at points per game. We talk about defense. Look at the other offenses though. Look at what FAMU was averaging. Look what Southern was averaging. You know what I'm saying? Might not have been great offenses, but go look at where they are. Go look at where they are, and let's compared to what those teams you said the MEAC were. Go look. They way under. It matters. It's not equal footing. It ain't.
But other than Zoe, you gotta say something. Other than you guys, nobody scored over 25 points a game in the SWAC. You realize that, right? So that's what I'm saying. See, this is the thing. Okay, listen. And the reason why I'm asking you this, because listen, and I think this is we got a lot of South Carolina State people, and I'm gonna tell you this. I've talked to a lot of South Carolina, and I was trying to get somebody from South Carolina State. He couldn't make it, but so I got to play the other side just for the balance of the conversation. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here is the thing that I want to know: is you've got a core. I believe that. Would you not agree that Jack State is a run first, ball control, consistent scoring team? Would you agree with that?
For sure.
Okay. South Carolina State has the passing attack to go big strike. So what I'm asking you is, do you believe if it starts getting where it's shot for shot, that's the type of game that Jack State can win? Or do they want to play the Jack State game like they played against Southern, like they played against FAMU, like they played against Alcorn? Because you guys said, to you guys' point, you guys are only allowed 6 points, 3 points in 6 games in the second half.
So, and again, because of how my defense looked, I'm being transparent and telling you, I don't foresee that happening. Because again, I think defense carries more so than offense does, right? Defense wins championship. So again, we're talking about on the neutral site, and we're forecasted to say, oh, their offense, well, they do this, so they're more inclined to put up 40-some points. So that's pretty much how the game is going to go. And I can sit there and say, well, no, we're more inclined to not allow them to score really any points in the second half because that's what we've been known to do. So, but to answer your question, yes, we can. We can. But also, it doesn't have to be that way because I really feel like once we really get going, I don't really feel like they can actually stop us and get us off the field. Because, again, if that's the case, we can actually slow the game down as well. That's why I say we can win in multiple ways. Basically, by listening to what you're telling me, they can only win that one way, and that is to try have big play capability. We can win in a myriad of ways. Again, when we talk about hidden yardage, when we talk about special teams, kickoff return, punt return, we already know they're going to try their best to keep it away from Travis Terrell. But again, we got ways to give them the ball in the kicking game. That's another we can win. We got the best punter in the game. It ain't even close. We can win field position. We know we got that.
Yeah.
Then we talk about what we can do on offense and how we can score on defense as well. I think in all the different facets of the game favors us. But to answer your question, if the game calls for us to score, we can do it because last time I checked, we are averaging right at 40 points a game.
Well, let me ask you one thing, Coach, and I'm gonna let you have it because I got to do because my South Carolina State people are texting me saying the two sides, so I got to give the South Carolina State side. They have the Offensive Player of the Year, Eric Phoenix.
Okay,
that is with a coach that he has been with for 3 years, that they have seen a lot of football. So I don't think that they're going to go in that game worried about we haven't seen this, we haven't seen that. How important is that by them having an experienced quarterback versus your quarterback who we've kind of – and listen, and Rocky even tried to tell the narrative, hey, they got 2 or 3 quarterbacks they can play. So they got a guy that they know they can depend on. And again, I'm talking about the narrative that people in social media putting out there. Who's the right guy to quarterback this Jack State team on Saturday? So again, I'm asking you this question about what do you think about Eric Phoenix and his ability, and he is the player of the year in the MEAC.
I again am going to tell you, guys may feel like you can't depend on Jacobian. We don't feel that way. We don't feel that way. When it comes to what we do and what we ask of him to do, we feel like as long as we don't turn the ball over, we'll win this game. If we tackle well and we don't turn the ball over, we will win this game. Point blank period.
Again, this is what I would say and I'll try to be unbiased on this. To be honest with you, there's no team that's really been able to pass the ball to the point to where they put up points against Jackson State. But I think this is to Mr. Campbell's point. The only legitimate passer that we have in the SWAC is Daniel Richardson. Right? Anybody else, they just throwing the football. Right? And in that game, Daniel Richardson had a half of where he could move the football through the air. And then somehow his water got cut off. You understand? I'm just saying, I don't know what happened, but his water got cut off. My point is, I look at this. The worst game I seen South Carolina State play was a game that it was 10 points. They were tied at halftime with A&T. And I expected them to blow out A&T. They eventually blew out A&T kind of the same way that Jackson State blew out Southern. But in the grand scheme of things, when they're looking pedestrian, is Southern in any way where A&T is as a team? I think Southern is a lot better than A&T. And I know the property of transference doesn't always work, but I'm just looking like what it looks like worst case scenario for both teams. And I think worst case scenario, what it looks like is I think their floor is much lower than Jackson State's floor, in my opinion, based on that performance against A&T. Y'all can give y'all context. You can put in whatever context you want to.
Here's the thing I want to say about this too, because I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Look, I respect Eric Phoenix. I think he's a damn good player. But I don't really feel like Eric Phoenix is the best quarterback that we face when we talk about, passer of the ball. I don't even think it's Daniel Richardson. I don't think either one of them, when it comes to being a thrower of the ball, is better than Mekhi Higgins at UAPB. Just passer of the ball. I don't feel like any receiver that South Carolina State has is going to be a better receiver than we face with Johnnie Gibson. I feel like Johnnie Gibson is the best receiver that we faced all season. I truly feel that way. Now, do South Carolina State have some good receivers? Yes, they do. And I do feel like what they do offensively throwing the ball can present a challenge. I'm not going to sit and say they don't. This is going to be a damn good game. But again, when we talk about what they can do, I'm sorry if I don't feel the way everybody else feels. I don't have any fear if it's like, oh my God, I'm shaking in my boots because they present a problem. We present just as much of a damn problem to them as they do to us. But the tenor of it is almost like, well, they do this. How are you going to do this? And the question needs to be, how the hell are they going to stop us? Because nobody else really has been able to do it. You know what I'm saying? Especially when we do it defensively. I feel like our defense is better than their offense, and we've shown that. Again, dominating and only allowed 13 points in the last 6 games of the season. I mean, that speaks for itself. But
how do we put the Alabama State game in context then?
I mean, Alabama State, best defense, top 3 defense in the country. Alabama State defense is nowhere near South Carolina State defense is nowhere near where Alabama State is. Not even close.
North Carolina Central was able to run the ball against. I said North Carolina Central was able to run the ball against.
In the first game of the season, you're going to hold weight to that? Okay.
Well, I'm just saying they were able to run the ball against.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. They did, but first game of the season. Okay.
So with that being said, so let's move to another matchup. And you talked about this. Talk about, and I think you brought this up. You lost a lot of wide receivers. Tell people about your wide receiver group, and I'll talk about the defensive backs for South Carolina State. Tell me about that matchup and what Jack State has to do with the wide receiver. I know you got to run the ball, but we kind of talked about, Rocky talked about this, but I also talked about Coach T.C. Taylor also having a complete game plan of center. So talk about the wide receivers at Jack State, and I'll talk about the defensive backs.
The wide receivers we have a damn good room, and we spoke to what we did from a recruiting standpoint. When you talk about Janelle Dupree, starting, 3-star JUCO player who's the grandson of the great Marcus Dupree, come in late in the season, who's done an amazing job, who shined in the Alabama State game against that fast defense, and they couldn't do anything with him. And very, very fast, probably be one of the fastest players on that field come Saturday. Then you talk about Isaiah Spencer, another 3-star receiver out of Madison Central, who's a dog, a technician as a route runner. Then you talk about, who I dubbed the name Swag T.O., Jonas Fertillion, and again, who's always open. And I can sit here and tell you, if any pass coming to him isn't underthrown, I mean, it's a touchdown waiting to happen. If he's not underthrown, it's a touchdown. I don't care who's on him. And the tape and the tape shows that, right? Who's one of the conference leaders in touchdowns. And so then you look at Landy at tight end, and then also in my mind escapes me. Jamil Gardner, transfer out of Kent State. I mean, and these guys, like I said, weren't even actually called on early in the year. They're way on down the depth chart, but damn good players. All are 3-stars, all of them. And so I mean, we're set there. The main thing is having the ability to get them to them. And again, Coach Taylor is going to unveil what we're going to do against South Carolina State. Well-balanced game plan. And I look forward to have a great balanced attack on Saturday.
You mentioned something that I criticized him for early in the game, the SWAC championship. His insistence on being balanced when you guys were running the ball in a dominant fashion, right? How you're a fan and a supporter. What did you think about his insistence on being balanced when you guys were clearly dominant running the football early in the game?
I'm biased to that thought process, right? But that's semantics, right? We all may want to eat the pie. We may all choose to eat it differently. Some people may want to eat the crust first, and some people want to eat it in slices and eat up front. I mean, it's semantics, but I err on the cost on the side of being balanced, not just for the game that you're playing, but for the upcoming game. It's what you put on film. It's what you like to do. It's a small little subtle nuances that you want to show as well. So I like the idea of, because you talk about dominating, right? Huge dominating thing when you can sit there and say you ran for 200 yards and you threw for 200 yards. You know what I'm saying? And talk about really having a defense on its heels. And I can also, most of the time when you are able to do both and have great balance, it equals time of possession. The majority of the time, they go hand in hand. If you have great balance on offense with great yardage, it almost all the time equals low turnovers and equals time of possession.
What about just winning the damn games, though?
Well, guess what? If you do all three, 9 out of 10, you won the game. Am I lying, Coach?
You ain't lying.
No, you had in the first quarter, you had like 51 yards rushing and like 14 passes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But here's the thing about running the ball the way we were, because again, you set stuff. Remember at the half before
I'm talking about the first quarter. That was the first quarter. What I was looking at.
But still, remember, even before going to the first half, before Zach gets a touchdown, it's a 10-3 ball game. So you still stay on playing with what you practice up for the week, because again, even though we're running the ball and you're passing it for a little bit, if you stick with one thing on the run, either way, you can always counter and do the other thing and catch the defense off guard. That's what balance come into play.
Well, obviously, TC saw something, because even after Zai went in and ran for 14, 15 yards, the next play, he threw a crossing route for another 14, 15. He wants to pass that damn ball. Like, that's.
I mean, he wants to pass the ball, but either way it goes, we're not going to sit here and drop back and throw the ball 35 times a game. And we know that's not going to happen. But here's the thing. You can have – it's all about the number of plays, right? And you can have great balance because, again, I can sit here and say this game, I may want to cut you with 1,000, 1,000 paper cuts. The next game, I just want to sit there and drop a bomb on you. But see, nobody ever really says, well, hey, man, you throw the ball and it's working. You keep doing it until they stop it. Like, no. Because, again, that can work against you. Because, again, you still got another side of the ball that got to play, and it's called your defense. And that's another thing about having time possession. You keep your defense rested. And guess what? We got a damn good one.
Now, so real quick, South Carolina State leads the MEAC in defense rush. They only give up 115 yards a game. Washington Addison are and we're talking about tradition now. They're 6'2" defensive backs. So these are not little guys. These are big guys who actually force and stop the run. So with that being said, South Carolina State brings a lot to the table on the defensive side. So to your point, while what you do really well, they also have a game plan because they've done it in the MEAC. And MEAC and Coach, and I'm going to bring Coach back in here. MEAC is known as the more physical conference, as a run-dominant conference, and they're only giving up 115 yards a game in what we consider the more run-dominant conference. And we're talking about, again, Washington, 16 pass breakups. I think he's fourth in FCS. Addison, a big guy that can man up, because we saw the matchup with Kendall Bowler, and you call him Swag T.O. I'm a little bit older. I call him old school Chris Barnett. That's what he reminds me of, a little bit taller thing. Like, I'm giving my Jack State folks. I think we talked about that. So I keep bringing this up because people say styles make fight. I think this is one of the most evenly matched celebration bowls that we're ever going to have, based off of strength versus strength, what people do well. South Carolina State does well, you do well, what Jack State does well, they do well on the opposite side. So I keep bringing these things up to talk about these points so I could just make sure we're giving balance on that. So I think South Carolina State says, hey, listen, we have stopped teams from running. We know Jack State has to run the ball. So this is why I go back to now, I guess the question with Rocket, do you believe Jacoby Morgan, if the run, hey, listen, because we saw the run game get kind of stifled against Alabama State, right? Can he then make plays in the passing game to win that game?
For sure. I sure can. I mean, here's the thing. I think a lot of time we're being prisoner of the moment, right? We're looking at the last game and we're equating to that's the best in all that he has to give, because that's the last thing we saw. And then we saw a great, opposite of that when Zai came in, right? And it's almost like, oh, well, Jacobin can't really do that. But Jacobin is called the general for a reason. He's the leader of this team. The guys rally behind him. And again, last time I checked, it's a team. The one thing about playing quarterback, whenever a receiver is struggling, nobody sit there and say, hey, man, which receiver y'all can go to that game? Because, your no more receiver had a bad game. No, you go practice.
Give him the ball.
You go practice and you go get him right back and throw it back to his ass the next Saturday. But only at quarterback, when you have a bad game, it's like, oh, well, you ain't no good no more. We want to throw him out the bathwater. But you know what? What a great opportunity and a scene for Jacoby to come out and right the wrong from last week, right, and have a damn good ass game and win a Celebration Bowl to Coach T.C. Taylor.
Again, I don't, and maybe I said he was playing bad. I want to apologize for saying that, because I won't say he was playing bad. It's just he was ineffective, and that ain't necessarily him playing bad. That may have been, like you say, it could have been Southern. It could have been what they were employing.
It was Southern. I mean, and I'm not taking it was Southern. Southern defense, they play above and they played great on in that first half. And kudos to them. And I'm gonna give them that.
But what I was gonna say is, I think Jacobian, if given a chance, he could have done some of the same things Zai did, but they didn't call none of that when he was at quarterback. They didn't call none of the quarterback runs when he was at quarterback. They didn't try to QB power and all those things. You know, again, I know it sounds like I'm questioning TC Taylor. I'm just a real big fan of doing what you do until they stop it. And it looked like TC Taylor, much like Willie Simmons. So I'm criticizing and Coach Campbell will tell you I criticize Willie Simmons for the same thing. And rather than doing what is simple and risk averse, they tend to do what they feel will work in the moment, and that tends to be a little more risky, a little more tricky, a little more clever, and sometimes it gets you in trouble.
When it came to the game, I mean, Coach can speak for this. I mean, you see what you see on film, and you have a game plan, and even though the flow of the game, sometimes you may deviate a little bit going with the flow of the game. But, I mean, even replaying that game and being on the sideline and replaying that game back, I mean, nothing that we did was risk averse to like we should have been doing what we were doing. Everything still went into the confines of the game plan to work. And again, just because you don't have a great scoring output in one half, you go in and you make adjustments, and then it does what it does. We still in that second half, even with Zai coming in, we still ran the ball. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that was different was because Zai is in there. Zai's faster, so you changed up a little bit. That we're able to call a few more quarterback runs, but we don't really call that with Jacoby because, I mean, let's face it, he's not as fleet of foot as what Zai is. So there's no need to call that as many quarterback runs. Zai's more athletic than what Jacobian is. And so, you call things to, fit his attributes, right? And so that's all that was. I mean, so I wouldn't expect the offense and everything to be exactly the same as when Zai was in the first half. And again, we're still talking about the fact that we made adjustments. You make adjustments for what you want to do because, again, the DNs were crashing down, and we had an issue with that. You go into halftime, you make adjustments to those DNs crashing down, and you call plays in reaction to that. And that's what you saw, and you saw the results of doing so.
I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'll let the rest of the guys have you. Two questions, kind of related but unrelated. One, what was the impetus to make TC Taylor go to the third-string quarterback rather than the listed second-string quarterback?
Listen, I don't know if you guys actually tuned in. Look, I've been on Zai praises from last season. Zai was a record-setting Metro Player of the Year here in Jackson. Zai's a damn good quarterback. And just so people know, when Cam played it early in the year, he wasn't necessarily just a second-string quarterback. There was no second-string quarterback. Just got a new transfer in and wanted to see what it looked like. And we saw it and everything else. So, Zai, if you noticed last year,
My name is Danny Wilson, and I won $500 on the lunch break with AJ Jones.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.